What's up? Thank you guys for coming to our Queer Comics Roundtable panel. I am Caroline Cash. I make comics and comic books and comic strips. And recently I got the chance to do an Adventure Time fan fiction that was turned canon, much to my delight. With me, we have Emily Zullo. She is a New York-based cartoonist and animator. She makes auto-fictional work about young queer women and sometimes freaks. Next, we have Jasjyot Singh Hans, who is an illustrator unendingly inspired by an explosive neon mix of fashion, music, and pop culture. He has constant regard for things past and a veracity for all that is current. And his work chronicles around themes of body image, sexuality, and self-love. And then, next we have Eileen Chavez. They are a comics artist from Oakland and currently based in Chicago. They make poetic zines about plants, dogs, and celestial beings. They are very passionate about self-publishing, making creativity accessible, and decolonizing art. So, join me in welcoming our panelists. And I thought we could go one by one and just say our astrological signs and the cities we live in. I live in Philly, and I'm a Capricorn. So, yeah, you
Which
guys.
me? Oh, okay. I live in New York, and I'm a Sagittarius.
I live in Chicago, and I'm a Leo.
I'm in Chicago, and I'm a Pisces.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And I was wondering, and y'all can answer any of these questions in any order you want. Whoever wants to go first is good with me. And I just want to know what majorly inspires your work? Like when you really sit down and think about it, what was like the first major inspiration for you being like, I think comics and sequential storytelling is the best way to make the work that I care about, you know?
I'll go.
Yeah, you go.
I like work as an animator, but I've always like had a deep admiration and love for comics, and like it's become a very major part of my life, and so they're at war with each other. But I think one of those moments where I was like, oh, like I really enjoy comics and I'm very like inspired and there's so much to like gain from them was, I think, in between middle school and high school, I found Octopus Pie by Meredith Gran on Tumblr, and I read all of it, and I read it till the end, and that was like very majorly like inspirational and like stylistically very influential, and like I don't know, I like glommed onto that, and so I feel like that's a huge kind of like thing that ignited a love of comics.
Have you played Perfect Ties?
Yes, I have.
I sent her a fan email about it because it was so good.
Are you on the Discord where
I
you
don't
can?
like Discord.
I think a lot of my work is inspired by the women that I grew up around. I grew up in Delhi, in India, and we live in what we call a joint family. So it's my dad, his siblings, his two brothers, and their respect. So it was three families living in one house that wasn't fully constructed, and so there was no space. And the three women in the house really sort of took charge and made sure everything ran smoothly, and oftentimes like were the breadwinners in the family as well. So I've always been inspired by like femme energy, also growing up gay, and so I think a lot of my work tries to capture that in the characters that I draw. And over time, well, I did undergrad in India in animation, and started to read comics then, at least like in what we now know as graphic novels. And it just became one of the ways in which I felt like my ideas could rest. So I bounced from animation to illustration to, I mean, I still continue to do all of it except anime, um, where I'll illustrate, I'll do editorial stuff, I'll self-publish like small zines and make prints, and I find that these are all like outlets for my work, and comics are one of those ways to engage with stories that I'm interested to tell.
Cool.
You can really see like the influence of fashion illustration in your work too. And I know you
Yeah.
do a lot of like commercial illustration for fashion
Yeah.
houses too. It's so sick. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I cut you
No,
off.
you're good.
It was
It's true.
also my first job out of undergrad too, was that I think I was drawing a lot of fashion, and then someone forwarded that to a designer, and he asked me if I could make his website. I could not, and I just said yes, sure, I'll make your website. And so that was my first job, was at this like really big fashion house that's very well known in India. So I was lucky to be able to work with them, and the website never got made.
Damn.
So yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I'll say like I got into comics mainly through like the zine world and self-publishing, as I said. I was living in Portland in like 2014, 2015, and basically like coming out of college, like liberal arts college, studied like more fine arts. I was doing ceramics, was doing things with my hands, and then I was like living in Portland, and I was like, I have no access to like, you know, a ceramic studio. I can't really afford that right now. Like, what do I do? And basically I was like, oh wait, yeah, I can draw. Like, this is accessible. This is something, like, you know, pen and paper. Sure, let's do it. And then just like meeting a bunch of people from the IPRC there, which is like the Independent Publishing Resource Center, and seeing people scan and, you know, print books with all these tools there was really inspiring and really cool. And I was like, wait, I can make a book with the stuff that I'm doing and like hand it out to people and trade and, you know, like experience a fest like this. It was, you know, mind-blowing. And also just being like, wow, like the things that I do is actually like, you know, people actually want to see them and read them and hear my voice. And then also, you know, similarly, like getting access to other people's work was really cool. And so that's kind of like how I got into comics, and also just being like, wait, what is comics? Like, what are zines? You know, the boundaries being so fluid. And yeah, I feel like, you know, every fest I go to, I see new versions of that and new versions of like, you know, queer stories, like BIPOC stories, like just voices that I feel like, you know, aren't really in the mainstream. And also like, I don't have to tailor make them to like something that's going to be in a gallery, like on a pedestal, right? Like, so that was my entryway.
And as you started making comics, you kind of, and let me know if my memory is not as good as it used to be, but didn't you just kind of immediately also start volunteering and organizing with like putting together the Portland Zine Fest and or the Portland Zine Symposium and stuff like that?
Yeah, basically I just like, you know, I was hanging out at the IPRC, and like that's where, and like with my drawing group, which like over time I was like, wow, everyone in this drawing group is super gay, which is also cool. Because I was like, oh, no wonder like we all relate and get along, like it just made sense. But yeah, I mean, you know, like just being in those spaces, you kind of meet people who are passionate about it, and then you're like, and I'm like, wait, I want to get involved in this. I want to like, you know, help put this on. Like, this space is so important to me. Like, how can I get involved? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you so often, you're like, oh, I like this thing. How can I help everyone do this thing? And I don't know. I love your work.
Thanks.
I know there's some more pages from it. So, do you guys want to talk about, I mean, you all mentioned this very conveniently. I had it written down, but you all just mentioned, like, you do animation, you do a ton of illustration. You didn't mention this, but you do ceramics.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was wondering, like, how those separate practices kind of inform the comics work as well. And I was wondering, like, is it like inherently like a queer characteristic to be multi-talented? But you know, I don't know. Like, how do y'all decide? Like, okay, like this should be a really sick illustration piece and not a full comic, or this should be an animation and not a comic, or I should make a really cool little guy instead of making a comic about him. Like, how do you guys decide? You know?
It's hard.
Is it intuition? Or
I guess for me, it's kind of like what I have access to at the time. I mean, I'm very like, I get a thread, an idea, and I'm just like, I need to kind of capture this and not think too much about it. Hence, I think why my stuff is, I love self-publishing, is because like I need to chase a thought with the mediums I have accessible and like not overthink it, you know? So it's like very intuitive, and that's also why I write like poetically and stuff, because it's just like, I can't really like narrow it down in that way. And so I think too, it's like, okay, I have a thread and theme, and like I have clay in front of me, so I'm just gonna like try to, and also like the material informs what I make too.
Yeah.
right.
Like this is the biggest thing, honestly. Like when I draw, I'll just start drawing and be like, what comes out of this? Which sometimes I'm like, I want to make a big graphic novel, and I'm like, how do I do that if I'm just like sitting, you know? But you kind of like build on those ideas, so that's also a thing. But and I like expanding on it, right? Like a comics reading, I like to add like music or like performative elements and be like, comics is like, you know, cross mediums, right?
Totally.
And are in conversation with each other, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't mention this before in the first question, but this question kind of reminded me of it. A huge reason why I got like super into comics was because I started going to comics readings, and the performance element of that was like gigantic as an animator. And I was like, you can do that? Like, I didn't know you could do that. That's crazy. And it was like when like kind of people were starting to gather again, like kind of like not post-COVID, but like kind of in like 2021, 2022. And it's like my animation and my cartooning and comics are always at war, but a huge part of it is that I don't want to work on the computer more than I have to. So I actually like, I've enjoyed doing my comics because of the tactility of it and being able, because like everything I do is fully just like dip ink, like on paper or whatever. And so at this point, it's like, I'm done with work. I'm going to draw. And to me now, like drawing is like I'm going to make a comic. Like, and so I feel like I've just kind of like leaned into that, and then you like learn so much more, you can enjoy it. And a huge part of it is that I want to make something that people can hold in their hands now. And you cannot do that with animation. And if a big solar flare happens and wipes out all the internet, someone's entire life's work can be gone forever. And that won't happen with a book.
Or if a streaming service just decides last minute to pull a show randomly
Yeah.
without telling anyone. with no
Absolutely.
backups.
So, and I think also in terms of like, and especially with like queer stories and things that may be censored, it's like sharing information. It's like do it through a comic. Like, and so I've definitely just like kind of started to lean more towards it in terms of the stories I want to tell lend themselves so much more to that. Yeah.
I think controlling and being able to self-produce and self-publish as the government continues to be and get more and more fascist, being able to do it all ourselves is really important.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always liked the tactility of objects in print, and books are just a beautiful way to interact with something that someone sort of poured a lot of heart into. And I didn't start making zines till I moved to the States, really. I think the small press publishing and the small press world in India wasn't big at all. and so when I came here, it was just really refreshing to see people taking very simple ideas or some very thought through ideas. It's like a zine could be anything. It could be focusing on like producing something that's very simple in conception, in the most involved way, and then putting it out, and that would share space with something that's very well researched, and is just like Xeroxed, right? And so something about that felt very refreshing, and I work both ways. I think it's the burden of design training, where it's like I would think of an idea and then try and think the production through as clearly as I can. And a lot of it's, like you said, it's what's available then. It's like, oh, if at this print shop where I'm screen printing, there's a bunch of waste paper that is just a very weird size, then I'll find a way to turn it into something. Or if an idea needs for a certain kind of format for it to make more sense, then I will put in all the time to make sure that it fits that idea. I don't know if I'm rambling, but yeah, so for me it's like it can start with an idea, it can start with a format, and I can work my way to both sides to make it into a thing to hold.
Definitely. And your comics in particular are quite all like basically like artist books, I would say, because they're all in different sizes that seem very specific to each project in a way that's so considered, and like, you know, the little square ones and the accordion folds out, and I feel like the way you make the book really does inform the stories, and it's always so sick to see. Yeah, I don't know. Do you do a lot of screen printing?
Yeah, I do screen printing and Rezo whenever it's available. I'll travel to the suburbs and print at a library without anyone noticing.
Totally.
cut paper by myself and then remove their paper and put in mine. And then if the printer jams, just be like, I don't know what happened. But yeah, I really like the idea of doing it all by myself. In a way, but also with the idea of collaborating with like a small press person, and for them to take it forward in a way that I could never have the time and resource for. So yeah, these are pages from a much more involved sketchbook collection, which is a thing we call a zine that really got out of hand. We just wanted to print a couple images from my sketchbooks from 5, 6, 7 years. And I kept sending them scans, and they kept saying, yes, send more. And then it was like, do you want to collate all of these pages and Rezo print them? And they were like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. And then everyone in the studio probably like cussed me every day. But we're very happy with the way this came out, and this would not have been possible in my library misadventures. But yeah, I do whatever is again like available to me. I'm scrappy like that. I'll screen print something in like 2 days and fold it and have it be available the third day. Or yeah, I just like the idea of making small projects and without overthinking them, put them out.
I feel like that's, at least for me, it's really helpful to just be like, I have to do this in 3 days and get it out there. Because sometimes if you think about a project for too long, then it just doesn't happen. Or you get stuck in like the idea phase. At least I get stuck in the idea phase for too long. I don't know. I think that working quickly and with purpose is a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
But
I love having a fest as a deadline.
Totally.
That's like the best thing ever.
That's the terror I need. Yeah. It's like the embarrassment of no new work on the table is like.
And I'll tell everybody, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have this by then, and then I'm like, okay, the pressure is like on.
Yeah.
Definitely.
do you guys have a favorite fest that you've tabled at? Or is it just, you know? Chicago Alternative Comics Fest. Team Fest.
I used to really like this. It doesn't happen anymore. I lived in Baltimore for 7 years. They used to have a festival called Print and Multiples Fair, PMF. And then the organizers moved from the city to study or do other things, and no one took the reins on it. But it was a weird one because it was open enough that it would allow for narrative work to be a part of it, but it could also just be like print making forward, like strange art book. And it's all of that coexisted in like the most seamless way where nothing felt like it was better or worse. It was just people made like weird jewelries. Like the idea of multiples is like anything. So people had like ceramics or woodwork to like art books to just prints to comics. So that was one of my favorite festivals. Sadly, no more.
That sounds really good. I feel like okay, I've been going to Fest since like 2017. I want to say, I think 2017, and even from then to now, I've seen such a rise in there being more queer cartoonists, explicitly gay comics being made, work that does feel way more transgressive than like a guy riding his bicycle and he's sad that the girl won't text him back. You know, of course, if it was like a girl riding her bicycle, it's the same story. I'd be like, I'm so in it. So maybe it's just my own attention span. But I'm like, I feel like there could always be more queer cartoonists and queer comics being highlighted and shown at these festivals and at conventions and with publishers. And I don't know, what has been you guys' experience tabling over the past couple of years? Because I think you've been doing it a little bit longer than I have. When did you guys start tabling?
Only like the past couple of years. I think it started when I was in undergrad. I graduated from SVA in 2023. My first thing that I did, my tabling thing, was at their like holiday thing with like floppies that I printed on the school printer, and I couldn't understand how to get it right. It's like I was so trial and error. And then I kind of like moved along to doing like stuff in Brooklyn, like small things, and then this show is the first show that I've flown to, and this is the first show that I am on this is the first panel I've done. So it's been interesting because I feel like this past year I've been gauging like all of the different shows, and like I'm like what the vibes from each one, and but I'm like relatively newer to doing this more consistently. This has been the biggest show year I've had. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you wanna go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess, I've been doing this for a long time. So it's really interesting seeing, like, a really wide range of fests. Like, I mean, I feel like I say that at a lot of these fests that I go to, but, like, like, seeing the difference between, like, zine, specific fests of, like, self-publishing and, like, even the variety of types of zine fests, of, like, super scrappy, like, in the basement of, some bar or something, where it's like there's no lighting and you're like, this is wild, but also I'm so happy this exists, like I'm not making money, but like I'm meeting people who are starting out, or like not even starting out, but just excited to meet more people and like, like have their first book on their table, and I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm gonna support you, like compared to like, more established fests. So, I mean, what was the question specifically?
I forgot.
Like seeing them evolve, maybe. Oh, like, wait, no, I remember.
How long
I
have
was
you
thinking
been?
about just like the trend of like, not the trend, but just how many more queer cartoonists are actually being featured at comics festivals and have their work at comics, but not that, because we've always been making comics, right? Like that's not new. It's just like, I feel like the indie space, particularly not the mainstream comic space, is, since I started making it to now, it's always been very queer, but it feels more queer than ever, which is really very nice to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Zine Fest have always been queer. I feel like it's the
Yeah.
Comics Fest that have been catching up.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say definitely that has also been my experience. I guess it's kind of hard because starting with Zine Fest, I was like, wow, this is such a it feels like a space that's like trying to be pretty like overtly like inclusive and political and like, sharing like punk, like we're
Right.
sharing knowledge of like how to kind of go against the system, and then it's like going to fests that are more like the system, you're like seeing them become a little bit more like radical, but then like also in different ways where it's like this is still palatable radical sometimes,
Right.
so I'm kind of like,
Well, it's like the books that the publishers choose to promote, right?
Right.
It's like they're like, let's do another coming out story.
right.
Let's have a gay character, but it's the straight best friend, like the best friend of the straight character, and they aren't allowed to say anything except, yes, queen. Like, I don't know. It's just like what chooses to be
for
given
sure.
money.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting, like seeing that. I mean, I was talking about this to like my partner Sam, like on the way up. Like, I remember I think 2 years ago there was a panel here about like banned books, right? And like people, and it was really interesting, kind of like hearing. I mean, it's like fucked, but like just hearing about people's experiences of like how to navigate that and how to like, and then I think also at the time I was like sitting next to like my partner Sam Zavo and like Corinne Halbert, and being like, thinking like the art that they do is like so subversive that like they would never be banned necessarily because they're not. I mean, not that I'm trying. I mean, but in the sense of like like their art is like, like.
hypothetically outsider.
Yeah, it's already outsider, and it's like, I've just been thinking about like what is kind of like, able to make it to a point where it's disseminated so widely that it then gets banned, right? And like thinking about like my practice and being zine spaces and being like this stuff is so overtly outsider that like, it's not so widely disseminated again. But like, I don't know. I just think about that a lot. I don't have a formed thought about that. It's just.
It feels like these days you can like sneeze and your book gets banned. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, possible.
Seems really possible. Yeah, I don't know. You want to talk more about Bess, or you want you? Okay. If the answer is no, I got some more questions I wrote down in my notes.
Sweet.
But I was wondering about some of your your direct influences in comics. Like, what is a comic that you read that you had to sit down after and think like, oh, like I want to do it like this, or oh, I don't want to do it like this,
I feel like I said before Octopus Pie was like one of those huge ones for me. But it's like, I think like around that time that I read that stuff, I was like reading a bunch of comics and I found a bunch of stuff that I was like, okay, like I don't want to do fantasy. Like I don't want to do all this stuff, but I was reading a lot of floppies from like people I'm like friends with now, so I'm like, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like I would go see like I'm like blanking on names honestly because I'm like, I don't know. I would see a lot of stuff that like Alex Laird was putting out and like talking to Grayson. Grayson was like I was like, I want to make work like Grayson, and then we became friends, Grayson Bear. And just, like, seeing that and being like, oh, that's really sick. Like, I like this work and I feel attached to it. And you're very cool and nice, and you're like very receptive of my work as well.
Right.
And I think like I read some of your work, and I was like, that's really cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's like interesting because it's a lot of like people that are local to me are like very directly influential on the type of stuff that I do because I think they're very smart and intelligent. So
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, maybe the work that I look at is just stuff I'm interested in collecting, but I never. It's been a very long time because I don't want to make work like them. I don't want it to directly influence me. So I kind of just collect work that is different and exciting, but then just let my work kind of do its own thing or evolve at its own pace. And again, like with each idea, maybe like my drawing style will change. Sometimes it would move into a more toony direction. Sometimes it'll become more realistic. Like, yeah, like this was like with a scribbliest pencil, and I wanted it to look like smudgy and kind of janky. Whereas like if I'm drawing live at the beach, then it's the urgency of like the economy of line and trying to capture a posture or a mood really quickly or write down something silly that somebody said. So I guess, yeah, it's very like intent focused and comfortable enough now, like in my way of using those tools to take it wherever it
Totally.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like some early influences on me for like more, like alternative comics, like ideas of what you can do with comics, like definitely like Edie Fake, big influence. Like I remember getting like Gaylord Phoenix and being like, this book rules. Like this book's so cool. Just like, I don't know, like a little bit more abstract, a little bit more like, I don't know, I love abstract stuff. I mean, again, I doodle and like, I have like these weird ambiguous spaces and I just continue to like draw them. Like it's not really, a lot of my drawings aren't really grounded in anything because I feel like it's more of like this kind of thought that I'm kind of like growing and capturing or like an emotion. And I'm like, how do I illustrate that? But yeah, like Edie Fake, and also just like a cool abstract alternative book, comic book that was like super gay, and I was like, I didn't really know a lot of like comics at that time exactly that could do that. So that was a big influence. I'd say like Margot Ferrick, huge influence too, just like crazy, moody, like weird abstract lines, and like so you can see so much like texture with the pen and like the emotion they capture with like even just like scripts that they're drawing, and it's kind of like blending this line between like illustration and drawing, and I don't know, it's very cool, kind of like Linda Berry-esque, like drawing your name, right?
I mean, yours is a crazy book. Like the way it's
Yours
drawn,
is
it's like no
insane.
other comic.
Yeah,
it's
it's
incredible.
It's unreal, and like Dogner's maybe my favorite comic ever. It's so good. I don't know. They capture this like emotional intensity too with their work that it's like it like blows you. I don't know. I have to like lie down afterwards. And like yeah, I guess like Tommy Parrish too is like another early influence. So I was like, I just loved their work. Also emotionally resonant. Also just like these kind of like weird bodies with small heads, and you kind of like get this body feeling where like I feel like you can kind of get into those characters, like, and feel the, like, heaviness of their movements.
I feel like you like to draw little head, big body.
I
too.
love that,
Yeah.
Yeah, also just literally, I like to do that. I like to draw weird, squishy things that it's like, this is kind of like a genderless, I don't know, whatever that means, or like gender, whatever kind of like this being that you can embody, and yeah. That's the best way I'm going to describe that right now.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So Some of the questions I wrote down are like really silly. I wrote down, are gay people better at making comics? But I'm not going to
Yes.
because we all know the answer.
Yeah.
Could you guys talk about what you are currently working on, if you want to? No pressure. Or not. It's no spoilers in the room.
I can talk.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a comic that I'm working on with a small publisher right now, and I'm very excited for that. It's like kind of been growing and changing over 2 years, and now it is like in its like beautiful final form, and I'm like, it's kind of like you can see very old art and then very new art in it, and I actually really like that because it plays off of each other, and so I'm really excited for that. And it's like a Trojan horse story about misogyny and queerness without overtly being, it's not like very explicitly queer, but it is about like, it's like an auto-fictional story about like me as a teenager, and it's like very much kind of about somebody who doesn't know that they are a lesbian being around men. And then I'm also working on a new issue of like a long-running comic that I've been doing for a long time, and it's long, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm pretty, I don't know. I work on it whenever I can, but it's taking forever, but it makes me happy.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm on my way to maybe picking back up like a memoir comic that I started. It was part of like I did like a chunk of it as part of my thesis at MICA, and then I had a publisher interested in extending that into a full book, and then it felt really crazy to excavate parts of childhood that I didn't want to deal with. During COVID and post that, and I just felt like more and more distant from it, and now I feel maybe like I would, now that there's lesser pressure to finish it, I'm excited to dive back into it. Couple other like weird zine projects that I don't really know what shape they'll take, but I'm interested in finding the most complicated way to fold a single sheet of paper and work on this one thing that will be about my dad's first car, which was this really like basic car. It was the first one in the family in his generation, so everyone was really excited about it. Yeah, it'll be like a sweet little narrative part to it, and then there's another part of it where I've taken like maybe over 200 pictures of car like nameplates, where I see like similar configuration or similar numbers, and it's happened thrice that I saw the exact same configuration, which was 3508. I just saw that and I had to take a picture.
Definitely.
Once in India, twice here. So I want to do something with that and trying to find an idea of home through things that really don't mean anything anymore, but you've grown up with and that you carry with you, because I'm so far from home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you gonna make the zine be in the shape of a car?
Oh boy.
Or is that a nightmare?
That will probably be complicated because I want it to be I want the narrative and the kind of non sequitur part to coexist.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking of like what could happen, like how could it have like both sides of it, and you could either engage with one part or the other without them overlapping in a chaotic way. It'll probably have to be a spiral cut, because then you get two sides, and I want to do it on a really giant sheet of paper, which means it would have to be screen printed. Because how else?
Maybe. One time I was printing on really big pieces of paper, and I like folded each one really tightly to run them through the Rizzo.
Whoa.
And it took 100 years, so maybe screen printing is faster. There's a really bad workaround. But what are you working on, man?
I have like, so there's like a couple of things. I feel like mostly, I have like some of my own like little projects that are just like threads that I'm like, maybe I'll pick that up and continue that. I guess, yeah, I have a book called like Dog World Out, and I feel like I've wanted to expand on that forever, because I love just making comics about dogs, and like, like mostly just this idea of like power dynamics and like language and like, but like doing those in this weird, more abstract way, and I like the idea of building on that world, so I do have like Dog World 2 that's in little vignettes that I'm trying to connect and make sense of, and not have it be too chaotic, because my process is pretty chaotic. So like that's the project I've been working on for a while. I'm also just like, my partner and I have a Rizzo in my co-op, which I feel very like fortunate to have. Like it's an amazing resource, like I feel very fortunate. And we like got a grant to help get more ink and materials.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's IAP grant in like Chicago. Highly recommend checking it out. I'm sure there's grants everywhere, but I didn't think I didn't know that those resources were available. And then I had friends that were like, you got to do this. And I was like, okay. And then I got it and I was like, sick. So part of that too is also just like helping get the resources to then print other people's stuff too. So like one of my roommates does like gorgeous photography, mostly like just different gay like nightclub scene stuff, and like we're trying to make a book of their stuff, and it's also like interviews, photographs. I'm really excited about that.
Hell yeah.
Those are two big projects right now. Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah. Oh.
Before we do Q&A, like open it up so people have time for like maybe 2 or 3 questions maybe. Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you guys want to talk about?
I have a question for all of you guys.
Cool.
Which is like, what is the thing that is not comics related that like you guys draw a lot of like influence or inspiration from? Because for me, it's stage plays, like 3-act, very simple, usually 19th century plays,
Cool.
which is very random, but yeah, that's mine.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think for me it's probably fashion and like now drag. And Chicago is such a great place to be if you're interested in drag. And actually I don't know if I wanted to say it right now, but I think I will. I've been really interested in working on a project that is just maybe short form interviews with all of the drag and nightlife performers in Chicago right now.
That would be so
So it would
sick.
be like, in a way, kind of capturing what the scene is in 2025. Because like bars keep closing and the scene keeps changing, and a lot of people who are popular now started in Chicago, and with a lot of anti-trans legislation and a lot of other nonsense around like nightlife and queer life, it would just be cool to have like a way to formalize that as a body of work, which could be endlessly extended by not just me, by anyone. So it would be cool to like start that in a way and then figure out what form or shape it could take.
Definitely.
So cool.
You gotta meet my roommate.
Yeah, that's what I said when you talked about it. I was like, I need to talk to you more
You
about that.
definitely-
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my influence, it's so funny, but say that. I feel like a big thing, like a big part of my life is like living in a co-op and running a co-op, and that definitely influences, I don't know, like a lot of just important things in my life and like what I think about just being in a community and like a messy queer community and like being like, how do we continue to like help each other and like work through conflict and
You have taken care of that co-op.
yeah, it's really special. I feel it's really important, and so I mean that definitely like is a big influence on my work or my, I don't know, just what's important to me. And then also like I've been doing a lot more music lately and just like playing and like jamming with people, and like it feels so good, and it's like such a cool creative outlet to kind of like mirror my other improv kind of work, like
Totally.
improvising in music and improvising in drawing. So it's like I feel like they feed each other really nicely, and also doing that in a communal setting, right?
It's all connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. I'm really influenced by the pilot episode of Desperate Housewives.
That's really good.
It's really good. I'd also say I'm influenced by Gossip Girl, if you've heard of it, and other similar TV shows.
It's really
Amazing.
Yeah. And okay. Does anybody have any questions for any of our panelists? Yes.
I don't know how to phrase this, so bear with me and my ADHD. But you all worked in a lot of very different mediums, and maybe different from what you studied in school. How do you deal with wanting to take on a project that's not within a realm of expertise or try something new when it's intimidating to you?
I think about how it's fun.
I feel like I wouldn't have a great answer because I think like comics and animation can be very transferable. It's just you kind of have to like turn certain switches on and off, like your boundary boxes. Like it's like, oh, sometimes you can think about animation like comics, but you have one panel to really work and you have to be more thorough with your boarding. So I don't know. I don't know if my answer would be as great as somebody who maybe like works with their hands or like does different things. Like, I don't know. Do you have an answer with that with your ceramics?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say is like, I mean, one, I like did ceramics for my, major because it was like, you can do so much with it, right? Like you can sculpt with it, you can draw into it, you can like do weird stuff when you fire it, you can, like have it on a wheel and like do more, there's like so much you can do. It's like a weird putty and it's like blank slate that you can kind of do so much into. But I guess like, and I really miss it. I mean, I've done a little bit since then, but I think the biggest thing with like your question is like when I'm like kind of intimidated by new medium or trying to translate or just like, that's kind of like the question that you asked.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing for me is like finding an area of play, right? Like an area where I can be like, this is really fun, because I love when the material kind of teaches me something and then I can follow that. I think that's the biggest thing is like when I get stuck in something or I'm like, I don't like this or like, it's not what I want it to be. I can be like, well, what does it want to be? And kind of working with it and like, what can it teach me? Like this idea of failure, like I love failure because it's like, well, why is it not working? Who's saying it's not working? What does that mean, right? Who's saying that this clump, this lump of art, a clump of clay isn't a piece of art, right? Like, and I guess that's my answer. Play and then also being like, why isn't it valid? I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me it just helps to like dissect it on like a tone of voice, then a medium, a format, and then figure out like how much of that is familiar, how much room for play there is, like, or experimenting. If it's a project for myself, it would be different than if it was a project for somebody else and there was a time constraint and there was a budget. So yeah, I think you kind of push and pull all of these levers and arrive at something that maybe makes sense for that particular thing. Is that too weird an answer?
No, it made total sense.
It's like accepting that you're learning
Yeah.
is huge, and
Yeah.
like I agree with the play aspect of all of it.
We have time for just one last question?
I mean, there's no one after you, but
Okay.
Oh.
it's only open for 1 more hour.
Okay. One more question? One more question.
So you all are queer artists, and to define yourself as queer artists, I like to ask everyone, what story or message do you like to tell most within that, that makes them queer? Because queer stories can encompass so many different things. So like, what's like your message when you make your work, or if you have multiple messages?
I try and not. I feel like it's like we're making like queer. It's like we're queer and we're making art. I think inherently, like some of that's gonna find its way into the work. I like even in just more abstract work to focus on for joy, but also like messiness of relationships, or trying to. I've been writing a little bit more because I think a lot of my other work was not as like character interaction focused, and so yeah, just interested in like it's sort of like queer rights, but also queer wrongs, and a right to marry, but also a right to divorce. So it's like, how can we bring something like that into a simple interaction between two people or three people? And yeah, maybe I'm interested to make more of that kind of work in future. So I've been writing towards that. Yeah.
I am of the opinion that by just like being a queer artist, like your work is inherently queer art. And I had somebody ask me at a show over the summer, it was like me and my partner who are both lesbians were tabling, and somebody goes, where are the lesbian comics? And we went, they're all lesbian comics. And like I at least find it very powerful to not be beholden to one type of work. So there's some of my work that's like schmaltzy romance, there's some of my work that is historical, there's some of my work that kind of falls in this weird drama messiness in between. And so a lot of that is that like it just deserves to exist, and it deserves to exist as queer art because I'm a queer artist, and I will not just I will not look at it in one specific way. And that's kind of how I approach the themes in my work and my messaging, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely subscribe to that. I think I also think of it in the sense of like, like again, my art is pretty poetry based, pretty like ambient, like it's not really a story. And I mean, I also just gravitate towards non-linear stuff and like weird, choppy, like what's going on here, and it's like outside the box of like maybe what someone might. I mean, even for this panel, I was like, I'm on the gay panel roundtable, like that's cool. Like I know I'm a gay artist, but I'm like, are you sure you want me to do this? Like, but, and also just, sometimes too, tabling a fest like this, I'm like, I don't do thumbnails. I don't, sometimes I have panels, sometimes, most of the time I don't. But I guess that, to me, though, I was like thinking, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty gay. Like, that's pretty queer, And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'll lean into that, like, and that's also what I've drawn towards, because, like, I think it's cool to see stuff that's, like, outside the mainstream, or outside, like, and also overtly, like, non-digestible, too. And I think that's also really important, and political, of, like, being, like, I'm and also not digestible to the mainstream, but also extremely digestible to like other, you know, like outsiders, whatever, you know, that umbrella means, like, and also just like that's what, you know, keeps me wanting to find more artists and continue to like do my practice and be in these communities. Like they're really powerful and important.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. I like making comics about like dyke drama and like messy, dumb bullshit, and lots of gag comics and stuff because I'm really interested in humor, and I think there's a lot of stuff that's like funny about being gay. So I'm kind of interested in talking about that with my comics, you know, specifically. So.
Yeah. Gay and drama? What?
I know. Those things have never ever crossed paths before.
I think we're kind of really good at it.
It's an endless resource.
Yeah, if we had more time, I'd be like, do you guys have any fun gossip? I wrote it down.
You wrote that down?
That's
so funny.
But, yeah, but we're out of time. So thank you guys for coming to our panel, and thank you guys so much.